Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Coffee with Sales Engineering. I am so excited to introduce you all to Nancy. Nancy, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us about who you are, where you work, and then we'll dive into some of our questions.
Yeah, thank you, Sessions. Really excited to be here today. So, once again, Nancy over here. I'm based out of Austin, Texas, and currently I'm a sales engineer at Pendo. I've had the opportunity to have various sales engineering roles from the e-commerce space to the marketing automation platform. But really, my background started in hospitality. So, I'm really excited to just dive into a little bit of those details before I became a sales engineer.
You have an amazing story, and I can't wait to share that. And we were so fortunate to have you at Big Commerce. Thank you for all your contributions there. Let's start with how you fell into it. And I believe it was you were making some pastries somewhere, and you were like, if only I could be a sales engineer, I would love to do that. Is that what happened?
My dream since I was a little girl.
That's right. That's what you told your parents. It's like, when I grow up, I'm going to
Yeah.
be a sales engineer.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't think I've ever really met anybody that knew about sales engineer before they became one, or even just on a day to day. A lot of people I talk to, sometimes even in the industry, they don't really know what the role is. So back then, when I was working in hospitality, I had a amazing career there for almost 10 years, working at places like Disney World, Four Seasons. Eventually, I went more into retirement communities because I wanted to really take a step back and
Yeah.
understand what do I want out of this because it wasn't making me happy ultimately. While I do still enjoy baking,
That's
long story
amazing.
short, I realized I wasn't really being fulfilled. I wanted to do more. I knew I liked customer service. I knew I liked problem solving. There's so many fires and crazy drills in the kitchen. But really, I knew I always had a natural curiosity for technology. So I took a step, and while I was still working part time in hospitality, I decided to take some night classes. I'm like, hey, I'm going to learn how to code because I didn't know any better. I didn't know what I didn't know. And I thought that was the only way to get into tech. I took some classes at night for just basic HTML, CSS, JavaScript. At the time, React was so
Yeah.
popular. So we dove into that too. It was really cool. And I realized I really did like technology as a whole. I was very engaged. I think out of the people in my class, I was one of the few that finished the program. At that point, I really only cared to get my foot into the industry. I started just applying around the city for tech support jobs. Coming from hospitality, I knew, hey, you know what? I just want somebody to give me the opportunity. And
Did
for
you
big
have
commerce,
anybody in your network at that time who was in tech support, or were there friends that were also taking online classes? How did you were just like, hey, I'm curious about technology, so let me just take some classes and see where it goes?
yeah, my brother at the time was thinking about making a transition, but he was in a totally different stage in his life. But I would say maybe that's what planted the seed. Oh, maybe I could make a change, right? Like I don't have to remain in the role or the profession that I went to school for, essentially. And yeah, to your point, thank you for asking that. I didn't know anybody. So
Yeah.
it made it
And there
really
wasn't
hard.
there wasn't anything where you hear sometimes people that are teachers or music teachers, but they always played with technology. They played, maybe they were big into video games, or they
Yeah.
did some web development on the side. Maybe that's what kind of triggered them to say, hey, look, I'm really passionate about this, right? How can I apply it? But you didn't even have that. I don't know if I'm going to be a great technologist, but let me just take a class and see how it goes.
Exactly. Yeah, I wish I was an avid video gamer because it looks so fun, but I'm just not good at it.
Right.
uh, but anyway, yes, taking some classes and starting to meet some people. Networking was what drove me to BigCommerce because, again, I didn't really know anybody, and I started attending different events after these classes just to meet people. I started volunteering for setting up whatever it was, just to get to know other folks in the area. And I came across somebody that told me about BigCommerce, and they said they were hiring for tech support roles. And it was like, hey, if you don't mind, just take an entry level route. And I was like, hell no, like I don't mind at all. I interviewed there, and I'm so grateful that obviously somebody saw something in me and gave me an opportunity there. I started as a technical support representative there at BigCommerce, and then it all went by so quickly. It felt within the first 6 months to a year, I really learned so much about the platform and just SaaS as a whole. Everything was new to me, but I don't know, I was just so engaged and I was so passionate about just learning that it wasn't so fast for me to start getting promoted into other roles and start learning other skills until I made my way into pre-sales.
Yeah. And so once you were in the role, you were like, this is my calling, right? You were good at it, you were excelling at it, you got it humming, and you're like, okay, I've made the shift from pastry chef, which you'll always be pastry chef once you
Yes.
are, I'm assuming. That's a lifelong passion. Just this weekend, you talked about your cookies. So that's not going away. But you added this new skill set of, hey, I'm a technologist now. I can take support calls. I can understand e-commerce. I can learn about a very extensive
Yeah.
e-commerce platform. And when customer calls, I can help them, right? I can problem solve and help them use the technology in the best way they can. How did that ended up being in pre-sales? Because support, most support people that you talk to, right, they may not even know that they can be sales engineers because both are very customer facing roles,
Yep.
but for some reason they seem so far apart, right? Like you're in services, you're in sales, right? So how did that transition happen for you?
Yeah, it was challenging. Somebody once told me, like, Nancy, just come over in pre-sales. You just already know the platform. You're just gonna show it.
Yeah,
And I was like, cool. So of course I knew nothing about value selling or just how to really make a demo that was customized. That wasn't just let's talk about how this function works for no reason. So it was challenging because that's exactly what in tech support I think we're wired to do. We want to go so deep into the functionality of something when sometimes it's irrelevant when you're talking to customers in the pre-sale side. So
right,
it was challenging at first to really change my mindset to talking about every single functionality of the platform versus what do they really care about and what is the value that they're going to get out of this fast forward
right.
when they start using it. So it took a little bit of learning, but I think I was so lucky that I had wonderful peers that really just wanted, there wasn't like a formal training or anything, but I would say like everybody, because I already knew the platform, everybody just wanted me to learn the skill on the fly type of exactly with what they already knew, what worked, what their experiences. And of course I got introduced to demo to win framework, all these things that were so new to me. And I don't know, I just always have this really, even in my personal life, like I'm just always looking for things to learn. So I think that's what really kept me interested because it wasn't just, oh, I know the platform and I'm just going to sell it. No, there's so much more that I can learn. And it just opened a whole new world for me that I didn't even know existed.
That's amazing. When you were tech support, how did you know sales engineering and what the profession, like when did you actually uncover what sales engineering was? You just met some SEs on the team or?
Yeah, I think it was probably around my senior years as tech support. I think once I started collaborating more with professional services and sometimes with pre-sales, because as you're trying to get more context on what the customer needs, I started meeting other people in the company. So I came across other SEs. And some of them had come from tech support as well. It was nice to see what other roles I could transition into.
Got it. So you started, sometimes people listening, right? They're always wondering, do I have to just wait for stars to align and things to fall in my plate? But you were actually exploring. You didn't know if SC would be it, but
Yeah.
you were networking, you were engaging with other people across the company, professional services, SCs. And I believe you met somebody who had taken the journey similar to you, where they were technical support and ended up in sales engineering. That's what triggered you to say, I see this person, they were tech support, now they're in sales engineering. I can do that too. I'm just trying to get to the,
Yeah.
because there's many tech support people that just continue to be tech support. Like what was the trigger where you said, I've done tech support, I've been promoted, there's something I see in this person that, why can I do that?
I think for me personally, it was a lot of the dynamicness that I saw in the role. What I mean by that is that in tech support, it's awesome to solve those problems. And I genuinely liked it, even when you had the challenges of disgruntled customers, but it was so rewarding. I knew that I wanted to take it a step further. And I think what I saw in these people was that they were able to really blend those two skills of still talking to customers but in a whole different environment where they get to talk about how we're going to solve their problems with the software that we're using. And it just felt like it was a really nice blend of tech and soft skills. So those
Yeah.
technical and soft skills for me, one of the things I often would get as feedback in my tech support roles, it was like, oh, you're just so personable and especially on the teams I worked at, it's like, oh, it was always one of the things that made me stand out. So I figured I could use that as a strength in other roles. And that's how this became something that, like, hey, I think this is actually what I'm looking for. Also, going to that dynamicness, I just thought, how cool is it that you get to talk to all these different people with whole different set of challenges, different industries, and I like that. I think with tech support, you end up starting to see a lot of repetition in the
Right.
questions and the problems you're solving. I needed to keep myself a little bit more engaged in my career.
So you identified a superpower that you weren't really optimizing in the current role, and you're like, where can I use this likability factor even more effectively in a different role? Had you ever seen a demo or an SC in action before you applied for the role?
I saw a couple, but it was already when I was starting to like, oh, I think I wanna do this. And
Right.
I was actually invited to shadow. Now that I remember, I did shadow when we were still back in office and everything. I shadowed an SC doing a demo actually, and it was really cool to see them in action. Have no idea what to expect,
Right.
but it was really fun. And then when I got closer to, okay, I think I'm gonna apply to this, I ended up just listening to some recordings after.
Amazing. I think that could be an interesting thing, right? Because you're like, okay, this person knows the
Yeah.
platform just the way I do, but the way they're presenting is slightly different than how I talk to customers. I can see how that would inspire you. So you did that and you got the job. And since then, you've had multiple sales engineering positions in different companies. So you've got flavors of how sales engineering is different in different companies,
Yep.
the team structure, the team dynamic, what people are called, right? It's technical sales, it's pre-sales, it's solutions consultant, right? There's different names. You mentioned support was repetitive. Some SCs believe that sales engineering is repetitive too. What keeps you going in sales engineering?
Yeah, frankly, I disagree. I don't think I've had a sales engineering role where I felt like it was so repetitive. Yes, a lot of things, especially admin stuff, can get repetitive or very similar. But getting to meet a new set of people with new challenges, different industries, company to company, these challenges are going to be so different. For me, what I like the most is that natural curiosity and learning that I have. I think if there's new functionality that comes up, or maybe something that we're adding to the roadmap, or just a way of a customer thinking about a functionality because they have a different challenge that we haven't heard, all those things really just keep me engaged. I really like just digging and getting to the why of things. And I think that's what's really driven a lot of my career in technology in general. But with the sales engineer role specifically, that's what keeps me going. And I think there's also a part of me that I created a little niche for myself in terms of I didn't just only start working US, but also started engaging with
That's right.
LATAM customers. So I think that was also another factor for me. It's so different what customers in other countries may be looking for. There's cultural and just different ways of running deals there that I just thought that was also something that really influenced the way that I engage with people and why I kept being so interested in the role.
That's great because yeah, that's right. That's your superpower too that, that you're taking advantage of, right? You can actually do demos in multiple languages, which is sales engineering itself is unique. Having an SC multilingual SC is unique in itself. So I totally agree with you. SC job is, even though it can be repetitive in the sense that when you explain it to somebody, it's like, hey
Yeah.
Nancy, what does your week look like? What do you do? I do demos, I do technical solutions, and I talk to customers, and I sometimes work on RFPs, and then I do that week over week, and then I do that quarter after quarter. You're talking to similar prospects. But I think what you're trying to say is that not boring because it's different personalities that you're dealing with. There is such an important relationship between the account executives, right? As a technical support, you're not really paired up with anybody, right? Sales engineering is a team sport where you win and lose together with account executives. Give me some insights into what have you learned about working with account executives, how important those relationships are for you, anything like that.
Yeah. So that's something that I think in the last year I've made it a point to really improve in just on a day to day. because I decided that just going back to basics was the key for me. Sometimes I think there was additional stress for no reason on my end. Who's aligning on this? And I realized that just taking it back to basics and really having strong collaboration that's based on communication. As simple as it is, it's not very uncommon for sometimes the partnership between an account executive and sales engineer be not so great because maybe there's a lack of alignment or communication. And I think when you really lay that foundation, it makes such a tremendous difference just from being able to articulate how do you like working with each other, how you can be best partners for each other. I really enjoy working with account executives that see myself as a partner versus just like somebody that's supporting them. I think that when I'm able to really voice my opinion and be consultative on the deal, ultimately we're all driving towards the same goal. I think account executives that want to partner with sales engineers are certainly my favorite to work with. And somebody who's not afraid to really align on, hey, I'm doing X, you're doing this, and be able to really communicate properly what the expectations for each person involved in the deal are. That makes such a huge difference.
And it's so proven that working synergy drives results, right? Any sales team you can look at, your top performing reps always have the strongest bond between their SCs, and the audience can feel that, right? Like when you go into a even a tough, most competitive situation where the prospects can feel that you're dancing on the same tune between the AE and SC, they appreciate that because at the end of the day, they're buying your platform because they believe in you and the AE, right? They believe in the platform and people buy from people and all that. So are there any, you mentioned like the AEs that you've really respected and admired are the ones that see you as a partner. Are there any other qualities about AEs that you have learned to really respect that they do in a way to optimize your commitment and your value as a sales engineer to their deals?
Ooh, I love AEs that really challenge our customers. Oftentimes, I have worked with AEs that they may just go with what the customer is asking because I think that's just natural when we're in a role where we're there for the customer. But I think AEs that are willing to challenge the customer, why do you really need this? Or why is the timeline X? Or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
But really, those people that have that confidence and truly believe on, let me get down to the actual reason of something, those are spectacular A's to work with because those are the A's that win deals. Or if we feel like those deals that maybe are going towards the competitors, those are the A's that can bring a deal back.
That in one of my episodes, Corey Bradford
Hmm.
talked about this analogy about a customer comes to you, prospect comes to you, says, I'm looking for hammers. And to your point, the A's that ask, why do you want a hammer versus, hey, look at these 15
Yeah.
hammers that we have. One is really strong. But the person that asks why you want a hammer and the prospect says, I'm building a deck. And the AE goes, you're going to need decking screws, not
Yeah.
nails. So you need a drill. Let me tell you about all these amazing
Yeah.
drills that we have, right? Are there other things as you continue to evolve in sales engineering? Are there other areas where reps are not doing things as optimum that they should be doing? Like in addition to challenging
Yeah.
their prospects, what are some common trends that you've seen in all your sales engineering careers at three different companies where it's a common mistake for reps to do that
Hmm.
either hurts your ability as a sales engineer to deliver the best value to them, or it might be some things they're doing intentionally or unintentionally?
Yeah. I think a couple come to mind, but across the three different orgs, I think there's never enough discovery. I cannot express it enough. I think it's a common one. The reason why I call it out is because every time that I think I'm evolving as a sales engineer, sometimes I think that I don't have anything else to provide from what am I going to teach these people? They've been doing the same thing for many years. But then you'd be really amazed at how people just get into habits. And there have been reps that they still don't do great discovery into what the prospect really needs, to your point, like getting really to the why behind just, oh, we just want X functionality. I think essentially that really translates to our ability as SCs to create a very tailored demo that, again, it's focused on the value versus just the platform. If we don't have that right information, we're probably not going to stand out among the competitors that they're also evaluating. So I think doing that early on, even if it's just one or two things, I think that's going to be a huge differentiator so we can keep the prospect engaged and make sure that we can continue in the evaluation. On the flip side of that, let's say fast forward, we continue when it comes to depending on how organizations run trials or proof of concept of whatever the case may be. I think again, going back to that challenging, like making sure that they're really holding the prospects accountable to not being afraid of telling them like, hey, what really is a success criteria and what's going to happen after. I think that's just gold. That's something that I still see reps being a little bit afraid of pushing, but I think it's better to lose fast than spend so much time and all the resources and maybe when we really didn't have a deal there. So I think those two come into mind.
Yeah, and it's amazing. I'm starting to see trend, even at our company and other companies that I talk to, is reps want SCs involved in discovery. It used to be where it's like, I'm going to do the discovery, and then when the time for demo is when I'm going to start transferring some of that knowledge. But to your point, sometimes reps may not even know exactly what questions to ask. And if SC is on that discovery call, she can actually ask the right questions to get to the why. But then there's a challenge around, right? SC is a shared resource. You can't be on every discovery with every rep, right? So I think a lot of teams are trying to figure out both where does the pre-sales function and engagement and impact start in a sales cycle, and where does it end? Because I'm also hearing when SCs are involved in pricing and contract, they can add value there too, right? Because we're very versed in talking about features relating to value, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's amazing. I so appreciate, Nancy, for your wisdom. It's been so amazing to watch you grow in sales engineering. And I hope many pastry chefs that listen to this and you've got technical curiosity, you've got that hunger for either technology or problem solving, that you look at this as a potential profession for you. So thank you for sharing your story and your journey. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. And of course, if anybody wants to connect, I'm always open to meeting new people. I'd love to be a resource for anybody that's interested.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. All right,
Thank
we can
you.
cut here.